Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Modular, where we're taking a look at another of the brand new mods to come into the game in the 19.2 patch. This one is for Frost, and there is Icy Avalanche. This mod, like most augments, isn't that complicated, but it does have some things to it mechanic-wise which are worth noting. For each enemy caught in the radius of Avalanche when you cast it, you will apply a coat of ice upon yourself and your allies in range. That works much like Iron Skin. It stops status procs, disruption doors, corpus lasers, that sort of thing. The amount of protection you get is determined by the number of enemies that you hit. At base, you're going to get 60 hit points per enemy hit, so 10 enemies is going to give you 600 HP onto your ice shield. The amount that you add to your ice shield per enemy can be increased with the use of power strength mods. To be able to grab this mod though, you're going to need to be max rank with Steel Meridian or Cephalon Suda and spend 25,000 sanding. Now the main limitation of this mod is that if you hit 6 enemies with the Avalanche, you gain 360 health to your ice shield, for example. But then you're either going to need to hit 7 enemies next time you cast to get any increase on the hit points at all, which will only be up to 420 hit points in this example, or the HP will have to dip under the 360 mark for 6 enemies to bring your HP back up to 360 again. It's worth saying though that if you have 360 ice shield on you and then you hit 7 enemies next time you cast, you're not going to get 780 ice shield, it will simply go up to 420. Enemies that are still frozen from the avalanche ability do not count towards the next cast until they're no longer affected by it, so the combination of these things, these two things, means you just cannot simply spam it to get an unlimited amount of ice shield, and you can't even get a constant refresh. The damage mitigation from the Icy Shield also is not affected by armor mods whatsoever. So the build I'm using is a little bit of range. We've got stretch on there, we've got 185% power strength, transient force shield intensify, bit of efficiency, and then some survivability. One thing you guys always ask about is the build I'm using for my tests. It's not a min-max one for sure, but it is still pretty solid. With this build, I was getting 111 ice shield per enemy that I caught in my avalanche. So with all the mechanical stuff and the build out of the way, what do I think of the mod? Honestly, straight out the gates, I'm going to say I'm not really a fan of it, and this is possibly Frost's weakest augment that he has available. The idea of the mod is fantastic, don't get me wrong, it's a cool idea in theory, but the numbers for me just aren't strong enough for me to consider it. 6 enemies with my build is 666 ice shields. That's a light sneeze for anything at level 40 or higher. But with the introduction of more and more high level missions, we've already got the raids, the sorties, we've also got the newest mission, the Kuva Flood. The need for some interesting survivability options tailored for those builds is badly needed. Builds with augments in mind are some of the more specific, the more focused ones, tailoring them to get into those higher level bits of content. Icy Avalanche will just not do that. It's pretty useful at lower levels where it takes more than one enemy farting in your general direction to do 1000 damage. Don't get me wrong, it's still 1000 extra damage you can take, but even at Sortie 1, that's 1 or 2 shots at best, tied to an ability that still costs 40 energy to cast with my build. I just don't feel that 40 energy for 1 or 2 shots worth of damage is really worth it in my eyes, and we're already strong enough at those lower levels, to be honest, at just about everything on the star chart, so saying it's amazing there isn't really what we need. Remember, I'm only showing in Sortie 1 here, which is 40 levels below what they are in Sortie 3. This mod has got potential, I'm not going to deny that. Against Infested, it's got the most use. Lots of enemies to hit at once, meaning you're stacking your ice shield pretty high, plus then you're immune to all of the Eximus auras, you've got toxin procs, stuff like that. Not only yourself, but also your teammates are in range. But I think just the amount that you get per enemy hit is too low, and the only time that you're going to be getting the use out of it long enough for it to be worth it is when you're inside your bubble, because at that point the hit points don't really mean anything because you're not getting hit. But then to get hit, they would have to come into your bubble, so surely the augment for your bubble would be more useful. At lower level though, I mean, you don't really need it anyway. This is so close to being a mob that I would use, but for me it just doesn't last long enough at the higher levels because of that low HP for it to be worth it. I would be interested to hear what your thoughts are on the mod, whether you think it's worth it, and whether you think I'm missing the point of the mod completely here. I'm only human too, so maybe I am missing something that improves it at the higher levels. I look forward to reading your comments, feel free to hit that like button to sub if you like my content, and I shall see you in the next video.